I want you to imagine an empty chair. Let's say this empty chair is in a remote village in Kolahandi. An elderly widow walks 5 kilometers to reach it at 11 am because she was told the video would hear her pension complaint today. So she waits 1 pm, 3 pm, then 5 pm. The chair remains empty. The officer never comes. That empty chair represents the crisis of trust in Indian politics. And that widow represents the invisible citizens who suffers when politics forgets public service and loses its ideology. So today, I am Rajanandini stand firmly in the support of the motion that politics should be guided by ideology and public service. Because ideology is what fills that chair with a sense of duty. And public service is what makes sure that someone sits in it for that widow. Without these two, politics is just an empty stage with loud actors and empty promises. So first let's consider ideology. Every great political movement in history began with an idea. Women's voting rights, the freedom struggles, abolition of slavery, welfare policies, none of these happened accidentally. They were driven by the ideologies of equality, liberty, justice, and dignity. Ideology answers one important question: what kind of society are we trying to build? Without ideology, the politicians change parties, promises, and principles according to the convenience. But this question of what society is meaningless unless we see how leaders are actually chosen. We elect leaders on a manifesto, on a set of beliefs. But what happens when that leaders switches parties before the ink on the EVM dries? Odisha has witnessed this. The country has witnessed this. The voters feel cheated because the ideology was never service. It was self-interest. That feeling of being cheated is not new to Odisha. Our own history proves why ideology matters more than anger. Take Odisha's own example, the Paika rebellion. It's not just an anger against British rule. It was driven by the ideology of self-respect and freedom. Without that ideological foundation, it would have been a riot, not a revolution. And that same fight for self respect didn't end in 1817. It also lives today in how we see ourselves as Odias. In Odisha, we speak of Odia Asmita, Odia identity. It's not just pride, it's a political ideology that says our language, our Jagannath culture, our history from Kharabela to the Paika rebellion must shape our policy. So, what happens when politics truly follows ideology? We get real change. So, without ideological foundation, Asmita becomes a poster for election rallies. With it, Asmita becomes a governance. But ideology alone is not enough. Politics must also be guided by public service because people don't survive on speeches. They survive on schools, hospitals, roads, jobs, and justice. So when politics forgets public service, we get what? We start measuring wrong things. We debate the delimitation bill with numbers and maps. But my question is, should representation in India depends only on population? Should the states that have controlled population growth lose their political voice? If we say yes, then we are saying that statistics matter more than people. And that's exactly how democracy fails the invisible citizens. We often discuss the politics with big terms like GDP, fiscal deficit. But for a mother sitting outside in a government hospital at 3 am with her sick child, politics is not theory. It's whether the doctor is available, whether the medicine is affordable, whether someone listens. That's why we need the ideology of Antyodaya on to the last. It says the nation's success is measured by the life of its last citizen and not the richest one. So when the leaders lack the ideology of public service, the mother and the child become just as statistics in a health report. So we must stop looking at citizens as vote banks and start seeing them as neighbors. That's the public service. But when ideology and public service both vanish, the human cost becomes tragedy. Just look at the Sijimali hills in Raigada and Kalahandi. The Kond and other Adivasi communities worship that land. The ideology is Jal Jangal Jamin. But when politics is guided by corporate instead of public service, what did we get? We get bauxite mining that threatens to displace thousands and destroy the ecosystems. The crisis of trust begins here. When the people feel that elected government serves the shareholders and not the citizens. Just look at the Nicobar project. The question is not just only about development versus environment. The question is development for whom? At what cost the Sompen and Nicobar tribes who have lived there for centuries? So without a clear ideology to protect the individuals and a service commitment to protect the vulnerable, politics becomes a bulldozer with a flag. If your ideology is only growth and your service is only to the powerful, then the invisible person pays the price always. Just look at the recent NTA paper leak crisis. When exams like NEET or CUET are leaked, it's the only student who suffers. The daughter of a farmer or the son of a laborer who have studied for day and night for their future. For them, politics becomes a broken dream when an exam gets leaked, when an exam gets cancelled. These are not just administrative failures, these are the failures of ideology and public service. When merit, fairness, and accountability are ignored, the future of an entire generation is put at risk. So, we must stop looking at the citizens as vote banks and start seeing them as human beings. That's the public service. So, to conclude, let's return to that empty chair in Kalahandi. Ideology is the reason that a leader should walk into that office with honesty and principles. Public service is the reason that someone should stay, listen, and help the citizens waiting before it. Politics without ideology is blind. Politics without public service is hollow. We need leaders who know why they fight. That's ideology. And we need leaders who know who they fight for. That's public service. So the true purpose of power is not to sit on the chair. The true purpose of power is to serve the citizens waiting before it. Thank you. Jai Jagannath.